You're listening to the Persistence Mastery Podcast to give your communication skills the clarity edge with your host, Paul Leon.
Today, we're going to focus on two core questions sales managers care about when a consultation does not result in a sale. Now, when we start reporting or taking on the new sales career, one of the biggest challenges we have is really trying to decide how we can build that pipeline. But more importantly, how we can manage rapport with our existing and current ongoing consultations. So, with that said, let's jump right into the content. The first question is, what information did the potential prospect or future customer care about if the consultation ended without an order? Now, this is a pretty big one if you're new into sales or even if you're more of a professional. And a lot of sales professionals will ask me, well, how do I answer that question for my sales manager who's looking for that? Let me keep it very easy for you. The solution to the question, well, what information did the customer want if the consultation ended up in an unclosed sale, is the 1 to 10 question. You probably heard this a lot, and it's common sense, but as I've said, common sense is not always common. So, how I end consultations to make sure I can capture this information for my sales manager in past careers is simply asking, hey, Mr. Customer, from 1 to 10, 10 being you have all the information you need, and 1 being you don't have all the information you need. Where are we? The reason I value that question is because it lets the customer process and think and decipher where the gaps are. And when we can identify the gaps, we have another opportunity to attempt another close. So, and this is also some bonus ideas to help you with that question from my professional perspective and background. If that customer says anything between 7 to 10, I would recommend you ask for another order. Simply, if they say, I'm an 8 on all the information, I would respond with, well, that's a pretty high number. Is that high enough to go ahead and move forward with this investment? Now, if it's below a 7 and under, it is a good idea, or you got to go with your intuition to simply say, not a problem. What information do you need to go from that number to a 10? And then just write down those questions. Now, if you're new, you will have to just be authentic and simply say, I'll need to do some additional research with my team to ensure you get a quality answer. However, if you're able to answer it somewhat, it's not a bad idea to say, well, from my current knowledge and our company's knowledge, what we know is X. However, with that current information, let me level it up after I do my due diligence and my follow up with you. The next question is, where was the customer at before you left the consultation? And this is why going back to that 1 to 10 close is why I like that solution, because it solves both those questions. So when you ask that customer prospect the 1 to 10, it tells you where they're at. So when you go back to your sales manager and they say, well, what information do they need and where was the customer at before you left the consultation, you can say, hey, I was actually asking them a 1 to 10 close and they told me they were a 3. And you can start to strategize with your sales manager why that is. And here's the other beauty of this question. As you do more consultations, if you start to see a pattern of unclosed sales, like you're getting a lot of 4s, 5s, and 3s, it starts to quantify why we're getting that number and helps you and your manager to collaborate cohesively toward a solution to help get that number higher so you can close more sales from consultations. Now, the last question is, what is the next scheduled follow up date? This is the ultimate question before you leave that consultation or report back to your sales manager. And the reason is sales managers totally understand that you can't close every sale. You can close a lot with a strong process and consultative skills. out of 20, 30, it's not out of scope to be doing 25, 30%. And there's a lot that can vary to get that number. However, it's vitally crucial that you have that answer for your sales manager to simply say, hey, I got this information they need. They are this number with the 1 to 10 close attempt. And this is the next scheduled follow-up date. When I reconnect with them, I'll be able to give them that information between now and then. Now, this is also an important miss and an additional bonus tip I want to give you. Between now and that next scheduled follow-up date, whether it's 2 weeks, 30 days, 3 days, 5 days, it doesn't really matter what the customer says to that question. You want to execute your 24-hour follow-up phone call. And that's whether they buy or don't buy. But it's vitally important, especially for those that don't buy, that after you get these 3 questions answered, you still execute your 24-hour follow-up call between now and then. And why is that? I actually published an article on LinkedIn about cold contacting in the modern age. And it talks about the importance of getting your value out and touch points. I'm actually going to post a link to that article in the show notes. I recommend you read that. I think it's going to help you in another area of your business. But again, the reason you want to do that is because you'll get that first touch point, which is your 24-hour follow-up call, just to check in and make sure they got all their questions answered between now and then. And what that does is if they're still not ready to buy between then and the next follow-up date, you can then be ready for that second touch point and keep them in that follow-up pipeline stronger.
Thank you for listening to the Persistence Mastery Podcast. Subscribe to where you listen to podcasts. And if you want to hire Paul to train or speak for your team, visit persistencemastery.com and fill out the request training form.